If you've been using Arch or any Arch-based distro that makes use of Pacman for any reasonable length of time, you probably at least have a basic understanding of how Pacman works. So how to update packages, how to install packages, and how to remove packages. But when it comes to doing some of those more advanced features, or some of those features that you use far less often, so things like listing out your orphaned packages, or listing out the packages that are dependent on a package that you have installed, for things like that, it gets very easy to forget what the options you have to use for those actually are. So today, I thought I would do a video going over some of those things, because I know that I tend to forget them pretty often, so if I forget them pretty often, I'm sure that someone else has the exact same problem. So the first one we'll go over is listing out the package info. So that'll be things like the name of the package, who the maintainer is, what the dependencies are, and things like this. So the way that you're going to do that is with pacman-si. So I, in this case, as you can see down here, is view the package information. So si, and then pass in the name of the package you want to look at. So let's look at, say, NeoVim. And as we can see which repository it's in, we can see the name of the package, we can see the version number, a description, the architecture, and a couple other things in here as well. So things like the dependencies and the optional dependencies as well. Now with SI, it's going to list out the package info for any package in the Arch Linux repository, so even ones you don't have installed. So if we just go pacman-si again and do it for Emacs, I don't have Emacs installed, but it will still list out the info for that. If instead you want to limit it to just listing out the info for a local package, what you can do instead of SI is do QI. So Q commands are going to be query commands on the local packages you have installed. So if we just run that now, as it says, the package Emacs was not found. Now, when you install a package, sometimes it's going to modify some of the config files within the etc directory. And in those cases, it might actually create a backup of those files. So if you want to list out the package info and the backups, what you're going to do is pacman-qii. So let's say we're going to look at it for something like NeoVim, and NeoVim just has one backup file. It's located in /etc/xdg/nvim/sysinit.vim. And let's say we want to look at something like BSPWM just to show you that this doesn't come up for every single package. So in this case, as you can see, this one has no backup files. And modifying this command a bit, it can also be used when you're trying to write an AUR package. So I was working on one for tiramisu, and basically what you can do is you can run pacman-qip on the package that is generated when you try to run make package. So I'll just show you what I mean. We'll run make package here, and I'll just show you just briefly. As you can see in here, I've got a package build file. So this is just the repo for that AUR package. So what we're going to do is we're just going to run pacman-qip on that package file that we just made. So this tarball right here. So this is the newest one. And we run that now, and as we can see the name of the package, we can see the version number, all of the same stuff we saw before, but this time it's not for a package that we actually have installed or for one that's in the standard repos, it's just for a package file that we have access to. So this is really useful for when you're trying to make an AUR package and you just want to make sure that your package info is all correct before you actually go and push it remotely up to the AUR. So another thing you might want to do is list out the files that are contained within a package. So if you want to do that on any package that's available within the standard repos, what you can do is pacman-fl. So fl is going to be querying the file database. And what we're going to do is we're going to run this on, let's say, I don't know, we're going to do NeoVim again. And this should show us every single file that when we install the NeoVim package will be installed along with it. So there is a ton of different files in here. I'm not going to scroll through all of them because that would take way too long. And as I said, this will work on any package, so not just packages that you have installed. So we could also do this on, once again, on Emacs, because I don't have that installed. And this will list out every single file that when you install Emacs will be installed along with it. Now, if you just want to look at local files, what you can do instead is do QL. So let's just look at Emacs, and as we can see, Emacs doesn't come up, but if we do it for NeoVim, then this will show the information on NeoVim, or we could do it on something like BSPWM, and that will show all of the files installed with BSPWM. And this also does work on things that you did install from the AUR as well. So if we do it on, what is something I have from the AUR? Library app bin. So as long as it's installed on your system, even if it's from the AUR, as long as Pacman has access to it, you can do all of these Q commands on it. And once again, like with QIP, we can do QLP, so P in this case refers to package, L refers to list files. We can do that on a package file that we have as well. So pacman-qlp on the package file over here. So this will just show us every single file that gets installed along with this package, and we run that. And unlike some of the other packages, this one only has a couple. So the next one we're going to look at is Pacman-SG. So what G stands for in this case is group. So what this is going to do is let you list out the packages contained within a group. So let's say we wanted to look at the packages contained within the Plasma group. So as we can see, we have all of these different ones in here. So Oxygen, libkscreen. This, if you don't know, is the group for the Plasma desktop. So we can also look at, say, I don't know, base devel and see what comes with base devel. So base-devel, and we run this, and we see we have things like autoconf, bin utils, bison file, Gork, grep, and a bunch of other tools as well. So this is useful for finding out what packages are going to be installed if you try to install a group, or if you're trying to get rid of a group, what packages you need to get rid of. And like with what I said earlier, if you do it with Q instead of G, what it's going to do is list out the packages contained within a group that you have locally installed. Now, this does work a little bit differently from the other ones we saw, so I'll just show you what I mean. If we run this now, this will be the exact same result as when we ran it with S. But let's run it on Plasma and see what it's going to do. So as you can see, it still lists out some results because all of these packages here are contained within the Plasma group. However, I don't have the entire Plasma group installed. So even though you don't have the entire group installed, with the Q command, you can still see what packages are contained within a group, even if the rest of that group isn't there. Moving on, if you want to see what packages you have installed explicitly as dependencies, what you can do is Pacman-QD. So this will list out every single package that was installed as a dependency. Now, instead, if you want to list out the packages that you explicitly installed, so the difference here is, if we do QE, these are the packages that I said I'm going to install on my system. So I installed Waker, I installed W3M, I installed X Wallpaper, whereas with the other one, these are things that got downloaded alongside those packages. So these are just installed as dependencies. If you were to then go and manually install one of these files, so let's say you wanted to install something like, I don't know, zlib, then zlib would move from being an installed dependency to an explicitly installed file. So that's just how those two differ. But generally, you don't really need to know what packages are installed as dependencies or what you've explicitly installed. Something that might actually be useful, though, is combining QD with the T option. So if we just have a look at that, so Pacman-Q, and we have a look at what D does. So D, as we can see, lists the packages that are installed as dependencies. So we're going to do that one. And we're also going to do the T option. Now, what T does is list the packages not required by any package. So what this is going to be is the packages that you have installed as dependencies, where the things that they're dependencies for aren't actually installed. So what this is are your orphaned packages. So we run this, and as we can see, I have a couple of them. So we have things like Clang, Dep, FFmpeg Thumbnailer, Mozilla Common, and a couple of other ones in here. So if you're not actually using these packages for anything else on your system, it'll be perfectly fine to uninstall these because they're not actually being used by anything. Now, if you're actually using these on a day-to-day basis, what you should do is get rid of it as an orphan package and reinstall it as an explicitly installed package, just so if you ever want to get rid of your orphan packages, it's not going to also delete something that you actually need. For the next thing we're going to do, we're going to first have to run Pacman-FY or SY. So Pacman-FY or SY does the exact same thing. Now, with SY, one thing you have to keep in mind is never run SY and then say try to install a package. The reason why you don't want to do this is because of what Y does. What Y does will basically update your package database without actually downloading any package updates. So the reason why this is a problem is because let's say you wanted to download the newest version of NeoVim, and you try to download it with the Y option as well. Now, what this is going to do is update your databases, so you might get a newer version of NeoVim than you actually have the dependencies installed for. So if you want to install a package, only ever do Pacman-S or Pacman-SYU. So the U option in this case is going to update your packages. So if you're going to sync your database and you're going to update, then it's fine to install a package. If you're not going to sync your database and you're not going to update, it's also fine to install a package, but don't sync your database and then install something. You might cause some problems by doing that. But if we're just running Pacman-SY to update our databases, it's going to be perfectly fine to run it like this. So we're just going to run that, give it a second to synchronize the databases, and as we can see, all of it is up to date now. So what we're going to do is run a Pacman-F. So what Pacman-F is going to let you do is search for a package that contains a file. So let's say we wanted to find out what package contains something like Emacs. And as we can see, that's contained within the extra/emacs package, and that'll be located in user/bin/emacs. So we can tell that that's a binary file, and it's also contained within community/emacs-nox. And that is also contained in user/bin/emacs. So let's run it again for something like nvim. And as we can see, the binary for nvim is contained within the neovim package. But if we were to search for something like neovim, as we can see, we're not actually going to get any result. And that's because with just the -f option, it's not going to do a regex search. If you want to do a regex search, what you have to do is include the X option. So in this case, we'll find a couple of things that contain neovim. Now, the reason why this is working, but it didn't work before, is because in the case with nvim right here, nvim is the entire name for the file, whereas in the case of neovim here, neovim is only a partial name of it. So what we could also do is we could do something like, let's say we do .star. Now what this should do, theoretically, is list out the same stuff. So another thing we can do is we can also do regex searches. So we could do something like, let's say v.star or something like that. And what this is going to do is list out everything that starts with V and then has any characters after it. So we run this now, and as we can see, this will go for quite a while because what it's basically doing is listing anything that contains a V and then literally anything after the V. So basically anything that has a V in it, this would do the exact same search as well. But you can also do more complex regex searches. Like say you want to search for something like this, for example. What this is going to do is find anything that has a V in it, has any other characters, and then has an M at the end. So we run this and give that a second to go, and as we can see, this has a V here, then has an M here, and then it has anything in between. So it works like a normal regex search works. I'm not sure what sort of regex it uses. I'm going to assume it uses the same sort of style that grep uses, but I'm not entirely sure. And if you just want to do the regular F search, but you want to do it on only locally installed packages, what you can do is pacman-qo, and then say, let's look at something like nvim. And as we can see, nvim is owned by the neovim package, or we could do something like bspwm. That's trying to do it on my folder called bspwm. Okay, my bad. BSPC. Let's do it like that. So, as we can see, BSPC is owned by BSPWM. Another thing we can do with Q is list out the count of the files that are installed by a package. Now, obviously, you can go and manually count them yourself, but the nice thing about this is it'll also count the files that aren't installed. So, for example, let's go pacman-qk and look at BSPWM. And as we can see, we have 50 total files installed and 0 missing files. Now, the 0 missing files is the important part. So let's say you're messing around with something in your root directory and you accidentally delete something that might be needed by a package. Well, if this says 0 missing files, you didn't delete anything too important. But if there are any missing files, that means that for some reason or somehow, some of those files got deleted. And to fix that, all you'd have to do is just reinstall the package. It's not really that big of a deal. As long as you don't break something like Pacman, you're probably going to be fine. So when you're installing, upgrading, or deleting packages with Pacman, what it's going to do is maintain a package cache. And the package cache is going to make it so you can very quickly downgrade a package or reinstall packages that you recently uninstalled. But sometimes you might need to actually clear out that package cache, whether it's because there's a problem with it or you just need to free up some disk space. And the safest way to do this is to just clear out the package cache for things that you don't have installed anymore. And for that, all you have to do is run sudo pacman-sc. Now, you can also run this with an extra C, and what this is going to do is clear out the entire package cache. But this isn't really recommended just in case you need to reinstall any packages or you need to downgrade. If you do clear out the cache, it's going to take a little bit longer to do so. But it's not like you can't go and downgrade a package by just re-downloading it, so it's not like it's too big of a deal. So if you desperately need that disk space, then you can do this, but otherwise you should probably avoid doing so. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is just some of the basic uses of Pacman, just so I can cap off the video. Now, I went and installed Emacs off camera just so I can go and uninstall it, because the first thing we're going to be talking about is uninstalling a package. So, sudo pacman-r. Now, generally, I would really recommend against doing just -r, because what -r is going to do is get you those orphaned packages. So -r will just uninstall the package but not touch any of the dependencies. So you can uninstall a package like this, but all it's going to do is uninstall the package. Now, what I would recommend doing at a bare minimum is running -r with the S option. So what this is going to do is remove the package and also remove its dependencies. But I typically go a bit further than this as well. So what I will do is I will at least run pacman-rs and also the C option. So what this is going to do is remove the package, so that is the -r option, remove the package's dependencies, so that is the S option, and then remove everything that is dependent on the package, so that is the C option. So we run this, and it should be basically the same result because I don't have anything dependent on Emacs. But the problem with this one is it is recursive, so you can end up removing far more things than you really want to be removing, so just pay attention to what it's trying to remove. Now, if it's for something like a text editor, generally you're not going to have anything that's dependent on it, but if it's for something a bit more low level, like, I don't know, some sort of library you need, make sure that you're not going to nuke your entire system by deleting it. So just look at what is being uninstalled, and sometimes it's going to be better to just avoid the C option and just do -rs. But if you want to go and uninstall packages the same way that I do one extra option with this. So I do the N option as well. So normally I'll write it out as RCNS just because that seems to flow off the tongue pretty well. So what this is going to do is all of the stuff I said earlier, but also remove any config files that were installed in places like the Etsy directory and places like that along with the package. Now, it won't go and uninstall things that running the program generates itself, so it won't uninstall things that are in your .config directory, but if when you install the package, it also installs some sort of config file within your Etsy directory, this will clear those out as well, just so you don't have a bunch of files that you don't really need on your system. This is how I'll normally go and do it. So let's just run this now, get rid of Emacs, and there we go. The last thing I wanted to talk about was SYU. What this does is the Y option that will synchronize your package database, and then the U option will download the updates. Now, the reason why I want to talk about this is because I'll occasionally see people coming from other distros like, say, Ubuntu, who don't really understand what the Y and the U options are actually doing, and think it's just some magical thing that will update your packages without really thinking about what the options actually do. So Y will synchronize the package database, and U will download the updates. Now, you can also run this with an extra option. You can run this with the W option, and what this is going to do is download all of the package updates, but not actually install them. So if we run that now, what it's going to do is synchronize the package database, download the updates, and not install the updates. So the reason why you'd want to do something like this is, let's say you have a really low data cap at home and you want to download all your package updates at like university or school or whatever. So what you could do is download it with the SYUW option, and then when you have time to update, go and update then. The other use for this is, let's say you want to download all your package updates with a cron job because you don't want to wait for your updates to actually happen. And that's what I actually do. And as you can see, I just have one cron job in here. So I run pacman-syw and the --no confirm option. So --no confirm basically means it's not going to prompt you to say yes or no to anything. It's just going to go ahead and do it. This option I wouldn't recommend using most of the time. It's only here so you can run Pacman from a script without having to interact with it. But as you can see, what I'm doing is twice a day, 5 minutes past the hour, I'm downloading all of my package updates. Pretty much because I don't feel like waiting for my packages to download. I'd rather just have them all get downloaded, and then when I want to update, I'll go and update. So I think that's pretty much everything I wanted to talk about today. Now, obviously, as I said, this isn't every single thing that Pacman can do. If you want to go see a full list of what Pacman can do, check out the man page for Pacman. That's obviously a good place to start. But another place you can go to is the Pacman page on the Arch Linux wiki, which we linked down below. And this is where I found some of these commands that I don't use too often. So things like the orphan packages, that's not something I really use too often myself. Things like the package info and things like that, I actually do use, especially for making that AUR package. But there are other ones on the Arch Linux wiki as well that I didn't talk about today. So feel free to go check those out, and maybe you'll find out something else that's pretty useful. So I think that's pretty much everything for today's video, but before I go, I want to thank my patrons. So a special thank you to Joachim, Nathan, Andrew, Montezar, Peter D, Road, Tony, Donald, Kulari, and Zilva. If you want to join the Patreon, there'll be a link to that down below, as well as my Amazon affiliate links where you can buy the gear I use in this channel, or anything else you want, and I'll get a small kickback for it. Also, remember to go check out my podcast, that is Tech Over Tea, available on Library and YouTube, and the audio version available wherever you listen to audio podcasts. Also, remember to check out this channel, available on Library, BitTube, and also BitChute. And remember to smash the like button and leave me a comment down below. And remember to subscribe and ding the little bell icon down below as well. So I think that's everything for me, and I'm out.